Welcome to planning a science lesson while using the 5 short steps to planning and implementing the MEL Chemistry 10 Dextrite activity for home learning. So let's get started. Today's training is brought to you by the Borderless Teaching Academy, which can be found at www.borderlessteachingacademy.org, where we bring plans from the schoolhouse to your home school, where you can currently find lesson plans for kindergarten, such as checklists, work lists, DIY strategies for creating your own lessons, training videos such as this one, live training calls that you can sign up for, and the blog that you can comment on about our posts and future posts. Also, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, we'd like to thank MEL Chemistry, who delivers exciting chemistry experiments delivered to your door every month. Let's start with step 1, the book selection. Here you'll be able to satisfy the Common Core reading standards and create a rigorous selection of books to become acquainted with. Also, providing your child with a wide range of information. Just a reminder, reading to your child every day builds their vocabulary tremendously. With this worksheet, you'll be able to figure out which book you want to use. Here are some examples of books that can be classified or categorized as literature or informational books. There are different types of literature and informational text which can be found on the Step 1 worksheet, which can be purchased on the Borderless Teaching Academy website as well. Literature usually has a view or an opinion, while informational text usually states facts. Taking a look at these two books here, we can see that this book on the left is an illustration, and that means usually that the author had a perception or a view that they put in the book. This book right here is considered informational text and is going to have more pictures that are photographs and that are fact-based. More information about determining text complexity will be in more of our live trainings to come. Moving on to step 2, content planning. Here we start to create science plans according to the next generation science standards. Now at this step, we come to see that under the 4 domains of science and see that our book and our experiment falls under the chemistry category. So I want to remind you, whatever book that you decided to pick in step 1 should have to do with the category of chemistry and science. Now, this is the start of shaping the direction of the content in which your chemistry topics will go in. But MEL, chemistry experiment, falls under chemistry. So this is a good guide just to take a look at what you're going to do for your other lessons. Under chemistry, this is a higher level course for students that are older. But if you have a younger one, it's also good just to let them know what is out there to come as far as chemistry. So it's really good for them to take a look at these experiments and these lessons, even though that they're younger, just so they can have a further understanding of what's to come. So we're on to step 3. At this step, we start to create our questions that we're going to use for our experiments. We start to get an idea of what we're going to use for our assessments and also for writing activities. You can also view the experiment on the MEL app beforehand, which gives you an idea of your steps you're going to be going through, and also gives you a chance to design what types of questions you want to ask your student during the lesson, before and after. And as I stated before, it's really good for younger students to take a look at this as well, just so that they know what other events or topics are going to come up in science as well. Taking a look here in step 3, when creating questions, you can incorporate the questions for the introduction and activities. Also at this step, you can write questions for the observations by asking the student to write names, questions, descriptions, and other things to fulfill their writing standard activities. Also, it's good to get a workbook for assessments and have artifacts for your student's portfolio if you have to submit it to your local school district for completing requirements as well. Here I show an example of what types of activities you can have for your older and younger students. Since our activity is going to deal with metals, I decided it was a good idea to take a look at the magnets that are in this book right here. A follow-up activity would be to draw a line to things that are magnets, circle things that they stick to, And a good assessment would be to gather 10 things from the house that you think that will stick to something. And like I said, you can put this in a differentiation style where younger students do one thing and an older student would do something else. Now we move on to step 4, implementing your lesson plan. And this is when it's time to work. And this is when we really implement our MEL chemistry set. Remember to have your step 4 worksheet on hand to follow the format that you have created, along with your notes and other ideas, such as grows that you want to continue on or follow up, or some of the glows that you think you did really good on this lesson and you want to highlight later on as a follow-up or a review to remind your student of what you've done so far. So remember, we're going to start our experiment using the MEL chemistry kit, and we're going to move on after that to get to our next ideas of following up for evaluation.
Share the solutions. Okay,
so this is where we start step by step.
And this
as
is
you
where
see,
we are now. So
we're finding our tools together, setting up,
put that there. Okay. And
making
next,
sure that we keep everything in one space on our tray. Notice we're using our phone that's set up step by step.
Here, we're gonna do the picture, Nina. Okay, put your goggles on. Don't forget the goggles.
Don't forget your safety goggles.
For this. No, just, you gotta be aware of the camera. So put that there. Here's directly in there.
So now we're on our steps, so we're taking a look and we're adding everything here.
Insert the tip securely into.
It's always important to remember not to forget all of the steps. Here I show how we look at our phone at the same time, but it's always important to read all of your guidelines beforehand.
No, so you're not listening.
Remember to use the safety cap, the red cap, to remind you that something is active as a solution.
Okay, so then it says we're gonna shake the bottom.
Remember that you have your safety timer.
So
we're gonna skip to our next step, step number 2.
Into the bottom, into the thing. Pour all.
It's important to make sure to keep everything out of the way of the younger people. Here I'm keeping everything on my tray, just as you should do when you're completing any type of chemistry or science experiment. To see, we had the bottle spill. Good thing it was on our safety tray.
Next one says we're gonna add 2 drops of liquid soap to help the solution spread evenly all over.
And we take a look at our next step. It's important to remember that the pictures are there to guide you.
2 drops.
And not to forget to open up all of your bottles with your paper clip as we go step by step.
Step 3, place the electrodes into the solution. So let's see what that looks like.
Step 3.
This one we're going to use our clamps.
The step-by-step pictures are really helpful, especially if you're not someone who deals with clips and batteries on a daily basis. So, notice how I made sure that everything was matching up with our pictures. When you're dealing with wires, it's always important to give area and space for those wires to lay around.
So now this is when we gotta put our batteries. Ooh!
It's important to make sure that everything is in one area and nothing is moving too far from our area. Moving on to step 4 here is where we see all of our interactions taking place. We have an overview here.
All right, so now we see
So this is when we start to see everything growing. And let's try to notice some of the vocabulary that we're using here. And this is when you can implement a lot of your questions from step 3.
See, it looks like a crack.
I'm trying to use vocabulary that the young ones can identify with. And now we're going to do some time lapsing so we see the change over time, how our 10 dextrite experiment has moved from one side to the other. There's also a follow-up activity that was given in our directions that you can follow as well. And remember, this is when we have a lot of our conversations and questions.
Get off the chair. Get off the chair.
It's also important to notice that at this time, we see how all of our information is going to be gathered and how we're going to implement it at this time. Once again, step 3 should contain all of your questions that you're asking, all of your information, and at this time you should be filling out your form for step 4, reviewing your conversations. So now we're at step 5 where we evaluate our process and we take a look at all of the work we've done. Step 5 evaluation has to do with the evaluation of our goals that were started at the beginning of our lesson planning and following up. This also takes a look at our content planning training. It takes a look at our assessments, our outside learning opportunities such as field trips, and other things that are going to be given to each lesson plan as you follow up and build more understanding for your student. Just want to remind you, today's training was brought to you by the Borderless Teaching Academy, and you can find our information at www.borderlessteaching.org. You can also find our information today by MEL Chemistry Labs on our website as well, and our music today by Mr. Renard Poche can be purchased on iTunes as well. Thank you for watching our training today, and have a good day.